A very warm welcome to all of you who are tuning in now to this first Conclave by India Today. This is our first webinar that is focused on, well, you've guessed it, of course, the coronavirus contagion. It truly is an unprecedented crisis. And here on India Today, as we bring you path-breaking news coverage, we also want to help you. We want to give you answers and we want to bring you the best experts that the country has on questions that you have and we have as well, and we want to act as a bridge. So this is the first webinar here on India Today as part of our e-conclave series. I'm Shiv Arur. With me is Dr. Shelja Sen. She is one of India's best known child psychologists and a writer with Child First. Dr. Sen, pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for being with us. But first off, I want to tell our viewers that, as more than 3.9 billion people are under lockdown globally, we've all realized we're still learning to adapt personally and professionally. As millions, navigate the unknown and settle into an unfamiliar, closeted daily existence, all of us are we sure that our children are doing okay? I don't know if many of us have actually stopped to ask that question. We see our children, playing, sitting on their iPads, occupying themselves on a daily basis, but are they doing okay? They may be innocent, but are we certain our children aren't dealing with their own anxieties? Are they traumatized? Are they fearful of this new routine where they're closeted into their houses? How do we reassure and comfort and inform these young children a little better? How do we ensure our children emerge from this crisis more aware and better equipped for what the world throws at them next? I'm going to be in conversation over the next half hour with Dr. Shelja Sen. We've already got a whole lot of attendees who've signed up. They're joining us and they're all with us live. But I'm going to grab the first question myself, Dr. Sen, since I have that privilege as the host here on this webinar. As we adults, Dr. Sen, are coping with the enormity of this crisis ourselves, are children at the risk of being ignored? Because we as adults ourselves are dealing with so much. Do children run the risk of being ignored?
Very much so. I think this happens, and there have been a lot of studies in the past when as a community, as a society, when there's been trauma of any kind, that many times we assume that children would be okay. We think children are resilient, they are fine. So because parents themselves are going through a lot, so they get so caught up with their own problems, or their own crises, or their own uncertainties, anxieties, that they think children are okay because they're off school, they don't have any studies, they don't have any pressure, and they should be fine. But many times they're not. So it's very, very important to keep in mind that children, and to be very observant of any changes in children. It could be in their behavior, in the way they are, and to make home an emotionally safe space, and to create conversations where they can talk and share if they are going through something. It's very important.
Okay, we already have a question. We already have a question. Chandni is writing in, and we're going to try and bring her in as well. Dr. Sen, she asks, what are the signs to watch out for? To see if our children are traumatized, if they're going through something that we should be attending to.
I think right now we should not use the word traumatized, because I think it's an adversity children are facing. And on one hand, I believe children have the resilience. They're not passive recipients of trauma, and I think they have amazing skills and abilities to deal with adversity, sometimes much more than adults. But on the other hand, we should always be very, very observant. When I say be very observant means, are you noticing changes in your children? It could be in terms of the child is not sleeping well, or the child is not eating well, or the child is not playing the games or talking in the same way. Or for younger children, are certain things like they start wetting their beds, or they are crying more, or they're fighting more. So they're not going to come up to you and tell you, I'm feeling scared. They won't come. They'll throw tantrums. They'll have bad dreams. They'll fight with their siblings. They'll fight with you. They won't eat. They won't sleep. So we have to be very, very observant of slight changes that you might see in their usual patterns.
Okay. we've been flooded by people who are attending this webinar, Dr. Sen, and I just want to quickly tell all of them that on the app there's an option to raise your hand if you have a question or a comment to make. So right through this conversation, as I do this Q&A with Dr. Sen, you just have to click on the button that says raise your hand. I will see you, and then I'll take your question, and then Dr. Sen can answer it. In the meantime, I think one of the questions that we've received already is, is there a way to explain these things? I think this is a question that many parents have, Dr. Sen, is that how do you explain these really macabre things to young children? This is an awful crisis. Every part of it is, if I may call it, very adult.
Yes.
Thousands of deaths,
Yeah.
people suffering,
Yeah.
locked out. This is not the kind of, this is information that you would usually want to shield your child from, but you can't.
Yes. So I think a lot of it depends on the age of the child. If the child is very small, like even the children who are 7, 8 till the age of 10, you can't give them all the details.
Yeah.
They are not able to process or understand the enormity of the situation, and it will just freeze them, and they might feel very helpless and out of control. So the first thing I would say is it's about the parents. First,
Yeah.
how are the parents dealing with this? If a parent is calm,
Yeah.
is taking one day at a time, and is taking kind of a more balanced perspective rather than getting overwhelmed. Now, if a parent is
Yeah.
getting really obsessive, happening, the children are going to pick up. So it's not
Yeah.
if the catastrophization and doom and gloom stories will not help. But for
Hmm.
younger children, it's important for them to understand, and they're smart enough to understand that, the various things that happen in the world. They understand climate change. They understand how things have been changing across the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
That there is this disease that is around, and we have to be safe. We have to keep ourselves safe. They have to understand what we can do as a family and certain things we can't do as a family. So as a family,
Very.
suppose you make it as an adventure. Suppose you say, what, for next 1 month we're going to have an adventure. It's almost like going for a trek. It's
Yeah.
like going for
Yeah.
a trek, and we are
Hmm.
going to prepare ourselves. This is a
Yeah.
journey, right? So what
Hmm.
do we need in this journey? Where are we
Yeah.
going to go? What are we going to learn?
Hmm.
And what do we need? Courage. We need resilience. We need family
Yeah.
time. We need fun. We need
So
playfulness.
true. Yeah.
But we cannot let anxiety. Yeah, and we also have to, with children, what we do is we many times make anxiety or a panic as a separate thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talk about how is this anxiety, suppose it's taking too much of space in our
Hmm.
mind, in our lives. That's not helpful. We just say, whenever somebody anxiety
Hmm.
comes creeping in on you, what are you going to do? Give it a funny name
Yeah.
to that anxiety. Call it,
Yeah.
you come and talk to mama.
Hmm.
Or, certain, if I can
Yeah.
share some
Which is,
skills that I have learned from children.
i- i-
Yeah,
s-
sure.
yeah, Dr. Sen, sorry to interrupt you, because it's very important when you spoke about that anxiety, because Shiven Khanna has a very interesting, question and a problem. He says that his daughter is 5 years old. Earlier, she used to go to school from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, because she's at home, she's become very irritable. Since both me and my
Mm.
wife are working from home, she's become very angry, very irritable. Is that common? Is that a common thing?
I think one thing I have to tell you that really, really empathize with what each and every parent of a young child is
Yeah.
going through. Because, think about the multiple roles they have to play. They have to be a parent.
Hmm.
They have to take, be a school for them, because a lot of them have Zoom classes.
Yeah.
So they have to be a teacher to them. They have to run the household. So
Yeah.
it's
That's right.
really, really tough. And it's very, very important that they manage battles. Do the basic minimum that you can manage, have basic routine. Child also has a
Yeah.
routine. A child also has and make a space for the child. If this child is being irritable, maybe something is
Very
troubling this
important.
child. So I have a little technique even which can work for 5-year-old. In fact, I've learned it from children. I call it ABC. ABC is
Okay.
very simple. A is alert. Whenever fear is coming or anger is coming, give it a name. Where do you feel it in your
Hmm.
body?
Hmm.
How does how do thoughts go at that time? What happens? You make a game with the child,
Right.
and tell the child, imagine that you have a feather in your palm and you have to blow out. You're a
Yeah.
dragon.
Yeah.
B is breathe out, and C is change the channel and go and let's do some fun thing. We have to be very creative with the children because they, like you said so beautifully, Shiv, that we can come out of it stronger. This crisis is here to stay, but it depends a lot on how the parents position themselves. That's most important.
Okay, so we have a question now from Tanisha, which is actually related to something that you had. Tanisha, if you can hear us, you're on air. Go ahead. Tell
I
us what
can.
you'd like to ask. Yeah.
I can. So one of the things was, I think something that you've already answered is how much information should we really share with the children? I have very young children, age 2 and 4. And the second question I have is, my children really miss their grandparents. They miss their friends, their neighbors. How do we deal with this lack of human interaction? And how do we take them away from digital devices at this point?
Dr. Sen?
Right. Tanisha, yeah. So what I was saying was, obviously now people are going to miss each other. Kids are going to miss their grandparents. Fortunately, we have our Zoom. Like, think about it. We're sitting here in a Zoom session with people across the country.
Yeah.
So we have different ways. I know that, families, many families who never were connecting in the similar way are connecting across from different countries through these Zoom session, WhatsApp calls. So try to arrange these little parties. Little children are even having birthday parties, So do make sure that they have these connections going, because there's no other way.
Yeah.
So if you have a ritual every evening, you sit down with, take out your laptop and you have a Zoom session with your grandparents. You can play games together. You can do so much of fun things together.
Okay, we also have a very interesting question, and this is actually something that occurred to me as well, Dr. Sen. Meetu Pandey happens to be a teacher of young children. She's based in Noida. Meetu, if you can hear us, go ahead, ask your question. Okay,
I think she's mute.
Okay, I think she's muted. Meetu, if you can hear me, you can go ahead and ask your question. Yeah, Meetu, can you hear us? Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, good evening, Shiv, and good evening, Dr. Sen.
Hi.
Hi. I actually just wanted to kind of reinforce what you just said, that isn't this also an apt opportunity to equip our children with all the life skills that we actually want them to have?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important, not only our children, but ourselves. I think we took so much for granted. Now that we have to manage with bare necessities, it's an amazing opportunity for us to understand what really matters in life. And I think the question is not what if. I think we have a lot of this question of what if. We have to think of so what. So what, right now I can't go to a restaurant. So what, I cannot, so what else can I do? What else can I do? We have to be very creative with our children. We have to be very creative ourselves. We have to think of different ways of connecting with each other. And in fact, families are telling me that they are, the sense of bonding is increased. A lot of, we assume that mental health problems will rise in but a lot of children who actually are finding their parents at home, especially younger children, they are really enjoying it. They are loving it. They're loving the attention and time they're spending with. Of course, for young adults, it's different. For young adults, they want their space. And it's very important to keep in mind that don't, keep nagging them.
Dr. Sen?
Choose your battles again.
Yeah. KP, who's another person who's tuning in right now, asks, children, physically active in small spaces, isn't that also going to be a concern? And aren't there going to be problems and irritability arising from that? Little kids like running around. They need open spaces to enjoy themselves.
Yes. This is such a difficult situation for small kids, or all kids who are sporty, because they love space. And we tell them all the time, go out and play. And now we're saying you can't go out and play. It can be very confusing for them. So right now, I would suggest to parents that, take one room, put all the furniture out of it. Keep that space for playroom. So, and keep changing it. Put all the toys in the cupboard, lock all the toys up, but take out some toys at a time. So So, every day there's a novelty. Okay, new toys are coming. Then those toys are put away, few other toys are coming. So you make space for them, bring in sense of novelty to them. They also will
Yeah.
get bored, and that's bored. Maybe this period is going to teach them an amazing skill of being bored and being okay about it. Because only when suppose you have a art and craft center, a box in
Yeah.
the corner, you have books, you have instruments to play with, you make a tent for them, you have places for them to climb. That's enough. So doesn't mean that you have to be like a multimedia center for your children and entertain them all the time.
True,
Sometimes
true.
they can be bored.
You know,
You have to manage as much you can.
you were speaking about, sort of teenagers, young teenagers, people just into their teens as well. Chandni is someone who's joining us. She's got a 13-year-old. Chandni, your son is dealing with a lot of troubles and problems, and he feels like this is going to be what reality is going to look like.
That's true. He's been asking me, he says, I feel like my life is over. I can't go to school anymore. I can't meet my
Wow.
friends. I can't go out to play. So how does he cope with feelings like this? How do we advise him to cope with these feelings?
I think, Chandni, how old is your child? You
He's
said?
13. He's 13,
13.
Dr.
13.
Sen.
So 13, if you just, if it's possible for you to, on a piece of paper, on a chart paper, take out color pens and ask him to, make a journey kind of a thing. Make a start where you're starting from, and you make a journey in terms of, month of, and kind of say,
That's a lovely idea.
and make him understand that this journey of life, there might be certain obstacles. We might have to climb mountains. We might have to, wade through rivers. There might be bridges which might be rickety. There might be bad weather. There might be a hailstorm.
Yeah.
There might be some animals that come in the way. But what will each one teach us? And when we are end of May, what skills do you want to learn? By end of June, what skills do you want to learn? And when you go back to school, what do you want to tell your teachers? What project will you present to teachers? What will you tell your friends? So make it as an adventure, and that they are learning a skill. And if you map it out, you make it visual for them, then they understand there's a beginning,
Yeah.
there's a certain excitement that things are going to keep changing. It's not going to be the same. Hope that helps.
Dr. Sen, Mandeep Singh is another person who's tuning in and asking an interesting sort of corollary to Chandni's question. I don't know if Mandeep is a man or a woman. I'm sorry about that. But Mandeep asks, will children be paranoid about going out after this? Are they subconsciously accepting this as a reality? And will they be scared? And will they need to be sort of unconditioned about this fear to go out and feel normal again?
I think all of us are going to be scared, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's
I
true.
mean, think about it. All of us are going to be scared of going out, going for a movie, going to a restaurant, hugging people.
Yeah,
We are
absolutely.
not going to be the same after this. And I think children also are going to take time. So we can't assume everything's going to be okay. Again, they're going to take a cue from us. If we are giving the message, once things are better, that we are going out, we are okay, they're learning from us.
Yeah.
And children learn very quickly. Once they understand it is safe, they will be fine. But again, I think a lot of it depends on us adults.
Any tips for harassed mothers, Dr. Sen? Because this is a situation that's as much on the kids as it is on parents. There are occasions when one parent has to go to work, the other parent is at home, dealing with that anxiety almost solely. Any tips for harassed mothers or fathers?
I think for harassed mothers or harassed fathers or sometimes single parents, it's not an easy time. And I think right now you might have a lot of time, mothers and fathers have very high standards of parenting. They believe to be a good parent, I have to do
Yeah.
this, I have to make brilliant meals, I have to make sure my child is sleeping at this time, the child should not be on screen more than this, or the child should study for they have to let go of those standards. They have to understand this is unprecedented time. We are surviving a pandemic. We are surviving a pandemic. They have to let go of those perfection. I call it a
Yeah.
perfectionist virus actually. It's almost really terrible, almost like a coronavirus, which can really impact because we want to be perfect. Let it go. You know, it's okay if the child is getting up a little late. It's okay if the child has not brushed his teeth. What matters most is your relationship right now with your child. If you get the child to do everything, but there's so much of nagging, there's so much of conflict, there's so much of fighting at home, then it's not worth it. Focus on the relationship.
That is exactly what the next question. Tavleen from Delhi has this question. About she says that she and her daughter end up since they're spending so much time suddenly together without any breaks, they sometimes get sick of each other. They're fighting a lot, and there's a lot of this irritability. Is there a way to focus away from this irritability of constantly being together and focusing on the positive?
So if it's possible in your home, you have separate corners where people can, suppose I know for myself that I like my alone time. If I have a corner in the house where I can go and read or listen to music or just be, then I think you need to give each other space. Give each other space and let each other know that right now I need my space. Can you let me be for 1 hour? Because being face to face, and this is going to continue, let's face it, this is going to continue for the coming weeks. So we really have to be prepared that you have these signs, you have these codes, you have direct messages. When a person wants to be on her own, they can't leave the house, they can't do anything. So, at that time, reading helps, or talking to somebody else on the phone helps. Zoom sessions help, talking to a friend or Netflix or whatever helps, do that.
Susha Kaul is also with us. She has a question for us. Susha, I'm just putting your audio up. Go ahead. Susha, if you can hear us, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I'd like to ask one question. So I've seen some changes in my child since this lockdown has come in. I mean, he's probably become more obstinate. He's arguing and negotiating a lot more than usual. He's only 6. So I'm not really sure if it is, if it's the lockdown that's impacting him, or is it that he's just trying his luck and getting more and more. I mean, he just knows that I'm very busy, and so I'll probably give in to a lot more of his demands. I'm not sure what he's really feeling.
Yeah, so this is a 6-year-old. 6-year-olds love to be out, they love to play, they go to school, they have so many things through the day, and right now he's locked in the house. So it could be, what we are hearing time and time and again, this irritability is coming up. And I think what you really have to do is understand, first of all, first thing we have to understand, they cannot sometimes explain what they're going through. If it's coming through as irritability, as crankiness, or meltdowns, or tantrums, understand, and I think let it be for some time. If it's, try to maybe sit down with him one day with the, story to read stories or make a drawing or whatever. Try to understand what is troubling him. Sometimes when children can, through even their favorite toys, suppose he likes Spider-Man, or, understand Spider-Man is very cranky today. What is making Spider-Man cranky? And through stories, through play, through creativity, we can understand the emotions and also find from children what will help them. What will help Spider-Man? So maybe half an hour with mama in the evening, or going out with, going for playing with dad in the balcony, something like that. So the children are able to negotiate and understand, because children have no sense of control right now. Adults are telling them what to do. They need to have a certain sense of agency and control, that something I have in control. So there's a lovely example my colleague who has a small child gave, and her name is Somani, and she said she was playing with her daughter, and she said, okay, what are the 5 things that you want to do through the day? And using finger, 5 things the child wants to do. And okay, and then she asked, what are the 5 things mama needs to do? And so she gave them 5 things to her daughter Imara, and said 5 things I need to do. So then there's a negotiation. Mama has to work, mama has to cook, mama has to do this, and you want this. So then there's a negotiation and you work it out, but give some sense of control to the child.
Yeah. This next question, Dr. Sen, is from Salil Kumar. Salil, I've put your audio up. You can ask your question, and I can tell you that I actually still also have the same question, and I'm sure millions of parents do. Salil, go ahead, ask your question.
Thanks, Shiv. So I'm seeing, I have 2 kids, 5 and 10, both boys. They're spending good amount of time playing around in the at home. But my worry is they're getting addicted, and I used to control their time spent on the mobile or the TV or on any gaming device. And obviously, with this lockdown, we are not letting him go out of the house at all, both of them. So both of them have got now unlimited time on
Yeah.
these gadgets. And I hope they're not going to get addicted because this
Terrific,
30-day
terrific
period.
question. Terrific question. And with the lockdown set to be extended, Dr. Sen, gadget addiction is a big thing. Even without the lockdown, that was a concern.
Yeah, I think I'll take a balanced perspective here. If you are going to limit it to the time that you had before the pandemic, then you have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
You have to balance it and in a way that give them more time on the screen. However, make sure you have other things. So, again, the same example I give. So you kind of say 5 things you can do through the day, and one is screen and what time to what time, and maybe it
Yeah.
might, but don't worry. Once this pandemic is controlled and we are out, children are not going to stick to they're going to go out, they're missing being with their friends, going to school, doing those
Yeah.
fun things. It's going to change. So don't worry about that. But yes, having said that, keep a balance.
Okay, Tanisha has a very interesting question that it's something that occurred to me as well. So I'm going to try and bring Tanisha on board. Tanisha, yeah, we can hear you, Tanisha. If you can activate your video, we'll be able to see you as well, and you can yeah. I think we can see you, Tanisha.
Yes,
Go ahead, ask your
Dr.
question.
Sen.
Hi.
Dr. Sen, I'd like to ask you if you have any tips for parents that are working from home. Now, before this situation, kids were used to seeing parents at home and having them all to themselves, but now things have really changed. It's becoming very difficult. Kids don't understand the concept of, parents sitting in front of a laptop while they're at home.
Yeah. So, Tanisha, I would, something I was saying a little time back, but with children, or with all human beings, what really works is some kind of a negotiation. So I call this approach you, me, we approach. And this you, me, we approach is simple. You ask the child, what is, like I was giving example, 5 things that you want to do through the day. What are the 5 things? Like get up in the morning, 5 things you want. Then you need to do this. I have a meeting. I have to do this work. This much time is required. I have to do cooking. I have to do this, whatever. And then you negotiate and say, okay, let's put it down now. Put it down on paper. That from this time to this time, Mama will do this. This time to this time, I will play with you. This time to this time, you're allowed to watch screen. This time to this time, you can play on your own. This time you can help me in the kitchen. This time you'll help me do this. Involve them in the household work. But then you reach we. So it's you, me, and we. Once you do that, they have a sense of control. You can manage it.
Right.
It might not be a perfect solution. There's no magic trick there, but we have to find a way. But I can understand how it is being a working parent and having small children. It's not going to be easy. So
I'm
hats
actually
off to you.
wondering
Hats
if
off.
more, as more and more people like Tanisha, if we're all going to be forced to work from home, I think those tips that you gave, Tanisha, are going to be very important. We've got many more questions. Vidya Menon has asked a question that you answered a short while ago. She says she has a 6-year-old who's getting very cranky in the evening because, she can't meet her friends. So you did, Vidya, Dr. Sen did answer that question just a moment ago. But I'd like to take another question, which is important, Dr. Sen, which is the sensitive issue of abuse. We've seen recent reports of domestic violence going up across the world and here in India up to 100%. Our children, you're a professional. I'm sure you are aware of the data as well. Are there an increasing number of cases of children being vulnerable to abuse at home because of this lockdown?
There have been reports. In fact, there was a report I was reading. In the 2 weeks, there was around 1 lakh calls,
Wow.
of violence and child abuse. So we have to understand that there is almost a culturally sanctioned way of treating children, which is, which could be scolding, hitting, beating. We think we are parents. And there is a certain sense of I'm being watched, so I can't do anything about it. So there is a huge amount of concern what's happening behind locked doors for children who are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Suppose there's a father or a mother who has a problem, who children might be witness to violence, or sometimes they might be, being abused themselves, or sometimes, suppose there's an alcoholic father who's struggling with alcoholism, and right now with the lockdown, no access to alcohol. What happens to children like this? So there has to be, I really think at this time, we really need to be concerned. We also need to be concerned about street children. There are around 18 million street children in our country. So children who come from marginalized sections of society. So we have to really, really think through what we can do. So of course, there are a lot of child lines, like, helplines like Childline and NAS Foundation and the government's NCPCR. All these helplines are there. And I would suggest that, if anybody is concerned about any child in any family, please stand up for your children. And for children, most probably children are not listening to this, but children are also very resilient. They also find ways to keep themselves safe. So they have to find safe, when the father is very violent, find a space where they keep, hide themselves, keep themselves away, and no way try to approach them or antagonize them at that time.
A question that a lot of people have asked, and I just a reminder to the overwhelming number of people who are joining us right now, you can raise your hand, you can ask a question in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We're almost out of time, but I have time for a few more questions, so I'll take the first one. There are so many uncertainties in this time, Dr. Sen, so it's difficult to, for parents who want to give accurate answers to their children and not sort of create a false sense of hope or a lie around them. How do you answer children when they ask you, when is this going to end? When are things going to be normal again? Right. How do you answer that question?
I think there is no simple way to answer. I think first of all, children, how do you discuss this with children? I'll go back to that. Yeah. Children need to understand there are all kind of disasters. You can use your own word, whatever age the child is. It could be earthquakes, it could be, earthquake or flooding or various kind of people. Some countries, they fight with each other, and coronavirus is something very similar as a country or as a whole world we are dealing with. They need to understand what amazing things countries are doing or people are doing, how courageous people are in the face of adversity, and what amazing things they are doing in terms of contributing, in terms of donations they're making. So once you kind of change it to how amazing and courageous people are being, and what like health workers and doctors, what they're doing, then a shift is there, because there's no clear solution. We might say end of April and it might change to end of May. So we don't know. So I think right now we say, let's just take one day at a time. Right now in our calendar, let's put the calendars away. Today, let's just focus on 11th April. What are we going to do on 11th April? Okay. This sense of time also needs to change.
Okay, I saw one more hand going up. So I have time for one more question. I think Deepak raised his hand, even though that hand is not raised anymore. So Deepak, we can hear you. Go ahead and ask your question if you'd like to, if you have a question. Last one.
I think it's mute.
Okay, let me try and just unmute. Okay, I think Deepak actually took his question back. He raised his hand and then we've got time for one last question, which we're getting, Dr. Sen, which is that as a professional, and since you're dealing with both, parents and children in this, as part of your work, do you think children are overall going to emerge stronger, better, happier from this, or is this going to be like a sort of cynical, paranoid generation being created by this crisis?
I think there's no general answer to this, but I'm really very sure that they're going to come out stronger. I have huge faith in kids. I have, kids learn very quickly. They have the skills to keep themselves safe, to emerge stronger. And I'm very, very hopeful from what I hear children, the way parents might be struggling with anxiety and stress and getting paranoid, but children actually are finding ways to deal with it much better than adults. Yeah. So I am very optimistic about them.
Dr. Shelja Sen, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's not often that one gets to hear the wisdom the direct first-hand wisdom of someone like you from an issue on an issue that most of us would rather not talk about. It's a sensitive issue. Some people feel stigmatized asking for advice about their children, but I think we're overwhelmed on this India Today e-conclave by the questions, the honesty, the candor of our viewers, and I think it's been really wonderful, useful, helpful, and actionable for you to be with us. Thank you so much. We really
Thank you
appreciate
very
you
much,
being with
Shiv.
us
And
on this very first e-conclave session.
thank you, Shiv. It was a pleasure. And thank you to all the viewers for wonderful questions.
Thank you, everyone. Stay home, stay safe, and we will keep bringing you the very best that India has to offer as we navigate the lockdown. Thanks for watching.